Wally knew there was a growing number of speed-hungry street riders with no place to race. These were everyday men and women who just enjoyed fast cars, high-performance engines, and the thrill of competitive racing. By starting the NHRA, Wally was able to offer these people a safe place to race, off the streets and on the drag strip. And at the same time, he made drag racing a true spectator sport. Over the years, the NHRA has grown to become the largest sanctioning body in the world with more than 37,000 members from all 50 states and many foreign countries. As the sport evolved, an elite group of professional drivers and race teams has emerged. And last year, more than 500,000 spectators attended the 11 NHRA national events. But even with all the glory surrounding the professional racers, the real backbone of the NHRA are still the sportsman racers. The working men and women like those Wally remembers from 1951, who enjoy drag racing as a hobby, as well as a sport. These drivers aren't after the big money purses. For them, the real thrill is the pride of owning and building a high-performance race car, the camaraderie, and the competition of heads-up drag racing. It's these everyday people that make the NHRA great, and thanks to Wally Parks, they now have a safe place to race. Stick around, and a little while later, I'll get a chance to talk to him. But for now, it's back to the strip. Fellas?
Thank you, Ed, and we're happy to give the spotlight to the sportsman racers such as these alcohol funny car competitors. Brock, we've got another international confrontation here. In the far lane is Barry Paton from Nova Scotia.
Yeah, he's a 39-year-old airline captain, which is kind of a unique occupation in this field. Barry out of Waverly, Nova Scotia, way up north. He's running an 83 Cavalier-bodied alcohol funny car. There's Don Gerardo. He's a familiar name in this sport. He's a speed equipment manufacturer in his 83 Camaro. Keith Black engine in that one, Steve.
Gerardo is a former national champion, a former world champion. Here you see him pumping that hand brake, just inching that car forward to stage it. In the opposite lane is the gentleman from Nova Scotia. They're off right together. The Canadian hanging in there in the far lane, but Gerardo just out-muscles him on the top end of the racetrack. Boy, I'll say 659 at 210 miles an hour, but trailing an awful lot of oily-looking smoke. May have heard some pistons in that aluminum motor. So it's a long trip back to Nova Scotia for Barry Paton.
And we've got another pair staging at Pat, the Mouse Walsh from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, closest to us. And in the red car, Phil Cerrone in an 83 Omni-bodied automobile, Steve.
Now, the crewman here is performing an important function, Brock, backing that car up in exactly the same tracks that it burned out. That's the purpose of the burnout. It's to heat up the tires and also to put down some hot, sticky rubber to improve the racetrack. So the burnout's useless if you don't back up properly. Phil Cerrone backed up properly in qualifying to a 6.61 elapsed time to match up with Pat Walsh's 6.87. So it's Walsh who may well be gambling on a hole shot, playing those lights just as hard as he can. Here we look right down the barrel of the fuel injection, bolted to the supercharger, which is belt-driven at almost 50% faster than the engine speed. So if the engine's turning 8,000 in the lights, the supercharger is probably turning about 12.
Walsh's car carries a Rodec block in his, while the Cerrone car's got a Keith Black engine. A lot of Keith Black engines in this class, Steve.
A very popular engine in the supercharged ranks. A tremendous start by both drivers. Pat Walsh in the near lane, Phil Cerrone in the far lane. It is Walsh by just a little over a car length. 6.91 seconds at exactly 200 miles an hour, using both chutes and added safety precaution. So Walsh will be around this stage for the second round. And we move on in alcohol funny car competition.
And we've got Lew Winters out of Cleveland, Tennessee, in the Cherokee Warrior against Eric Caskey, Hilton Head, South Carolina, the Raging Bull.
Lew Winters playing peekaboo with our camera here, his head sticking through the escape hatch in the roof of the car, as you said, out of Cleveland, Tennessee. His opponent, Eric Caskey, is a restaurant owner, driving a Dodge Challenger, and he just did make this field in that last available spot, number 16. So it's Caskey in the far lane. It'll be Lew Winters in the near lane.
You know, Steve, I think people may misunderstand a funny car in that you don't have to have the bodies match the engine. They can be anything you want. Run what you brung.
As long as it's got alcohol in the tank and nothing more than alcohol, you're okay. 1,500 horsepower these supercharged engines develop, and it is Lew Winters in the near lane. In the far lane is Eric Caskey, and it's a good race till half-track when something apparently goes wrong with Eric Caskey's car. Lew Winters probably never saw him all the way down the racetrack. At 670, 206 miles an hour for Winters.
Okay, and we see the rear end of Rex Stevens' car and a very familiar little statement up there. He who snoozes, loses. That's certainly a reference to that, using that Christmas tree lighting system. If you blink an eye, you lose, Steve.
Rex Stevens is a rookie in this alcohol funny car competition, but not so in the far lane. It's this man, Gary Henderson. He's won a lot of important races, qualified well at a 6:57 for the Tennessee driver, and one of the prettiest cars in the sport. Rex Stevens, get this, Yates, is from Oblong, Illinois.
As opposed to parallelogram or triangle, Illinois, where one of my hometowns. But, yeah, he's in an 83 Challenger bodied car, 29 years old. He's a mechanic. He's up against a very tough man with Gary Henderson and the Wizard.
And Henderson can be a wizard on the lights, but not this time. Rex Stevens may have moved first, but to no avail as he gets too close to the center line. If you cross that center line, you could be disqualified. So he eased up on the throttle, and it cost him. Gary Henderson takes the Wizard into round 2 at 6:58, well over 200 miles an hour.
This is WSJT-TV, Vineland.
Frank Manzo out of Morganville, New Jersey, an 82 Trans Am. Runner-up in the world last year, #1 qualifier here at the Gatornationals. He's up against Bogey Cal out of Adela, Alabama. Steve had a chance to talk to him both earlier.
Frank Manzo, you're the #1 qualifier among the alcohol funny cars. Some say that's a jinx to be #1.
Well, last year I qualified #1 most of the time, and I did okay. I like being #1.
Do you worry sometimes when you run that quick and quicker than everybody else that maybe you're on the ragged edge? Is something going wrong?
Sometimes, yes, but this weekend I think we can go a little bit faster.
Tell me about your competition in the first round. How's this going to go?
Well, Bogey Kell got a good car. He's a good driver, and you never know what could happen out there. It's, you know, it'll be a good drag race.
All right, you're racing the #1 qualifier. This isn't going to be an easy one.
It's not. They all, you know, pretty hard. Manzo, he's tough. It's a tough field here. He's one of the best, and now's the time for us to step up. When you get a guy like him, see.
You got to try to leave on him, is what you're telling me, huh?
That's right. Cut a good light on him. Step this thing up. I was surprising.
Well, Bogey's going to step it up on old Frank, he says, and he's going to have to do that because Manzo is one of the toughest alcohol funny car drivers in the business. So as they're staging, we'll watch this thing go, Steve. Taking another brief little burnout is Frank Manzo behind the starting line, just again trying to get the tires clean. There you get a look at the butterfly-style steering wheel, the handbrake with a fancy wooden handle, and that was the parachute release that was mounted to the brake handle. Bogey Kell formerly campaigned an alcohol dragster. In fact, about 3 years ago, he won this very race, the Gatornationals. So we got two very experienced drivers here. Manzo happens to be a little bit quicker in qualifying, but as we've seen earlier with the alcohol dragsters, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a sure winner.
Well, let's see if he can do what he hopes to do, and that's step up. And the Southerner, Bogey Kell from Alabama, New Jersey driver Frank Manzo. Quite a contrast between these two drivers. Not only just in accent, but in driving style and their approach to the mechanical into the sport. And they leave right together. Manzo in the near lane. Bogey Kell is falling back. It is Frank Manzo. But I guarantee you, he can hear Bogey Kell back there about a car length. We'll be back with more alcohol dragster and funny car competition here at the Gatornationals.